Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, which I suspect you are, my name is Kat. I am, I guess, a hobby artist. I've sold a few pieces, mostly my pour paintings, which I was doing just a couple years back. I would say maybe 2023. And I love pour painting, but it is messy. It takes up a lot of space. And I had to put that aside because I'm a new mom and it just gets a little messy. There's a lot of prep, there's a lot of cleanup, and I don't have time for that. So in this new journey of art, in this new space that I'm in, I'm really prioritizing my sketchbook and just creating when I can. So a lot of that looks like what I'm doing right now, which is using a photo reference from Pinterest. I have my Stillman and Burn mixed media Zeta series sketchbook, and I'm sitting on my couch. My husband is making dinner, and my cute little son is sleeping next to me. He's about 6 months old, and he goes to daycare while we're at work during the week. So when he's home, I really don't want him in a crib napping. So his first nap of the night, he does sit next to me on the couch and just snoozes away. And it's the perfect time for me to get out my sketchbook, get out my watercolors, my gouache, my colored pencils, and really just be creative without stressing about it. And I really love this routine that I have so far. So for today's painting, we are using a Gallo's 48 pan set of watercolors. And I did get this set for Mother's Day. I did a full swatching. If you guys haven't seen that and you'd like to see these colors in action, go ahead and click that video. I'll have it at the end. But I do really love a Gallo. They're a honey-based paint, and I have tried several watercolor brands: Daniel Smith, Shinhan, Winsor Newton, and I love Daniel Smith. I do think some of the colors are hard to work with, but I'm pretty new to watercolor. My traditional medium is acrylic, so I think it's just a learning process there, as well as Shinhan watercolors, which I think are awesome. I'm a big fan of Shinhan gouache. So I did get their watercolor set. They're really affordable. I recommend them. And I like using that as well. I have a palette that I really enjoy using, which is the Shinhan watercolors. And it's half mixed with gouache. Excuse me, I'm like running out of voice. Like early in the morning when I have my coffee, my voice gets really like scratchy and dry. But yes, the Shinhan watercolors I have in a palette, and half the palette is watercolors, but then the other half is a sui gouache, and it's dried. And I really like using the two of those together. I also have a Daniel and Smith palette. It's a Bowerbird palette. It's really, really pretty. It's small, so it's like a travel palette that I mixed with the Sui gouache too. So it's like half gouache, half watercolor. And I really like using that. But the 48 set I got for Mother's Day from my husband, shout out to him. And I love a Gallo so far. I think it might be my favorite brand. I really want the entire collection. So far, I've done maybe a dozen paintings using this brand, and I'm just obsessed with every color that I've used. There's a lot of new colors that I don't have that I've been loving, like Buff Titanium was new to my palette. Um, let's see, Potter's Pink is a really good one that's new to my palette. And Potter's Pink I have in acrylic, and I really like using that for my acrylic pieces. But to have it in watercolor is just like game changer. What other colors are new to my palette? Naturno, I'm not pronouncing that right. It's like this deep kind of natural purple, I guess you could say. Love that. Um, Chromium oxide, this really pretty green. Love that. There's just lapis lazuli I didn't have in my palette before. There's just a lot of colors that are being introduced to me by a Gallo, and I'm finding myself really obsessed with them. So this painting here is a cute little cottage piece with these little geese, swan, ducky things that I found on Pinterest. And I was like, I love this. I love how relaxing it looks. I need to paint this. I need to have it in my sketchbook. So that is what we're working on today. If you look, the foreground, I'm using a mix between, I believe, chromium oxide and olive green deep, or sap green and olive green deep. I'm not real sure, but it does this really pretty granulating effect, and I really like how that turned out. There's probably a tad bit of like green gold in there, again, not real sure. I should have wrote down what colors I was using, but I was just flowing with it, just in the vibe, just relaxing. And the granulation of the foreground grass is just so pretty to me. Like, I'm just obsessed with it. I also really like how the trees turned out in the back. I think that looks really, really good. I love how, so at the end, I go over with some colored pencils. I believe I'm using Holbein, as well as a brown Micron pen. Now, I don't really like the effect of the brown Micron pen because I did get a size too big. I think I was using a 2 and I should have been using a 0.05, but I couldn't find it and I just kept going with it. So I'm not the happiest about how that turned out. And I did have to rework the windows a few times. They still kind of stand out a little more than my liking, but it is what it is. It's just in the sketchbook. It's more of like a practice piece, just kind of let loose, not be really stressed about it. But I think the whole fine colored pencils added a nice effect. I like how much depth it gave it. It gave it a little texture. I love how the sky turned out. So you guys will see me painting the sky. And it's got this like little whimsy kind of cloud because I did a dry brushing effect. But behind the trees, I mixed up some like slate gray with some buff titanium with the blue that I was using for the sky. I believe it was lapis lazuli. And I really liked how that looked out, or that looks. It turns into this kind of like foggy effect. And then you can still see some of the pencil underwork because I didn't erase all of the pencil from the ducks. And I kind of really liked how that turned out too. I just like to have pencil showing in my sketchbook. I think it gives it some character. It also tells the story of where the painting came from and where it ended. Um, so like in a finished piece, I definitely wouldn't do that. But in a sketchbook sitting on my couch when I want to have good visual because I have the lights off and I'm just using an overhead light, I like having the pencil sketch available. So right now I'm just working on the mid-ground grass. I love these colors. I love how this turned out. And I am just very happy with the piece overall. I think there's improvements to be made. I think if I, wasn't trying to get it done during my son's nap time where I only have an hour to work, then it might have turned out a little bit different. But I don't regret it. And I love the routine that I have. And I love that even when he's with me, I can still practice art and I can still enjoy my hobby as a full time mom, as a wife, as a full time employee. Um, it's nice that I still can make time for myself and play in my sketchbook. Now, when my son starts going to, so he's 6 months old now, and he still takes a couple of naps throughout the day, and he sleeps really good throughout the night. But when his naps start to shrink, then maybe I won't have as much time, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So you can see like I'm working on that little foggy effect here in the back where I'm just kind of neutralizing the way the sky looks. So instead of using just lapis lazuli, I added some buff titanium and slate gray like I had mentioned. And then you can see that the brush is getting really dry. And I like the effect that I'm getting with this dry brush. So if you look in the first painting I did in this sketchbook when I refound it, so that's a whole story too. So a sketchbook I got in 2022. I did maybe 3 paintings in it, and then I lost the sketchbook. And then there's another painting from 2023, and it's of my chicken Cinnamon. And she looks really little. So I want to say it was around the time we first allowed the chickens to go outside when they were finally big enough. And it's a painting of her, but then there's no other paintings. And I found this sketchbook in a closet and it was just abandoned. And I was like, I'm going to get that back out. I want to finish it. I need to tell the full story. And I think that's what a sketchbook does. It tells the full story. So when I do the tour, there's like 3 paintings from 2022, 1 from 2023, and then the rest will be from 2025. Now, I will say because the sketchbook wasn't preserved properly, the pages are old. So it's 3 years old, at least from when I started using it. Who knows how long it sat in a warehouse, but it was just sitting in the closet. So sometimes the paper does fray, and that's fine. That doesn't really upset me. It just adds a little wear and tear. It's not the most efficient or like satisfying experience when it frays, but it doesn't bother me. And I think the paper takes gouache really, really well. It is a mixed media paper, so it does take like gouache really well. Watercolor looks okay on it. It's not, like using 100% cotton. It doesn't have that same effect. The water kind of sits on top of the paper before it dries, but it's still pretty cool. And then colored pencil works great on it. So I'm pretty satisfied. And you can already see like a difference in the way my techniques are kind of evolving. So when I first pulled this sketchbook back out, I had gotten the Gallo 48 set watercolors and I wanted to use that. So if you look at the piece next to the one I'm working on, the colors are very wonky. They're very illustrative. They're a little playful. The sky is doing something weird. It's like granulating, but also at the same time, like it's like not giving like the cool warm effect that I was going for. And I think the chickens turned out way too dark, so it was kind of a mess doing that painting. I still like the way it turned out. I still think it's super adorable. I think it's very playful. I think it's very illustrative. I like the line work and the microns. I think it's a really cute chicken coop. Um, but it's definitely giving new beginner to watercolor, and that's exactly what it should be giving, because that's basically what I am. I mean, if I think about my watercolor journey, I did a couple of paintings in middle school, and I do have this painting, this watercolor piece of a dog that won first place in like a state fair or something like that, county fair maybe, and that was really cool. It was of my dog Sally, who passed away, so it was in remembrance of her. But then after that, I never picked up watercolor again. And in 2022, I did 3 watercolor paintings, and then I have no other watercolor paintings. That was the last of it. And then in 2023, I did 1 watercolor painting, and there's no other sketchbooks that I have around that have watercolor paintings. Like I didn't continue using the watercolors. I stuck to my acrylics. I really liked doing the pour paintings. I loved how big the canvases were, and that just really worked for me for the time that I was in. And then I got pregnant with my son, and I didn't want to use acrylics because I know oil painting, you shouldn't use oils when you're pregnant, and I didn't know if that was the same for acrylic. So I kind of just stopped doing art. And then around my 3rd trimester is when I got out a sketchbook and I just started sketching. And then I found my watercolor set and I started using that. I think it was a Paul Rubens set that I pulled out um, and started using in a non-watercolor sketchbook. So my first sketchbook that I completed last year while I was pregnant was a like sketching sketchbook, like really light paper, not used for water, not meant for water at all. And I was adding everything to it. I was using gouache, I was using watercolor, I was using colored pencils, and I was just getting through the sketchbook and using as many mediums as I could on paper that did not, where the mediums did not belong. And the pieces were, some of them were okay, but a lot of them really looked like they could have been better if I was using proper materials. And then I did complete a sketchbook recently that was cold pressed, but it wasn't 100% cotton. And I really liked how the paper worked with the watercolors, coming from like using a sketchy kind of sketchbook to using more of like a thicker paper that holds water better, allows the water to flow in a way that it should. Um, and now this is my 3rd sketchbook that I am finishing up for the year. And I do, like I said, the paper is old, but I do really like it. I think Stillman and Byrne did a good job here. I wish it was 100% cotton. I have a couple of unopened sketchbooks that are 100% cotton, and I'm really excited to use those because I think it'll be my first time with 100% cotton sketchbook, whereas I've used 100% cotton watercolor paper pads, but I have not used a sketchbook. So I'm excited about that. I just need to get through this first because I need the books to be completed. I don't want to feel like I wasted money and I didn't complete the book. Now, if I really hated the paper, like if it really wasn't working for me, I probably wouldn't complete it, but I don't hate it. It's fine. It's doing the job. It's allowing me to get my creative expression out there, and I'm satisfied with it. So yeah, this is Stillman and Byrne, like I had mentioned before. And if you have a favorite sketchbook brand, please let me know, because once I get through this and I get through my unopened sketchbooks that I have here, I'm going to try some other brands. I want to branch out. So if you have one, I know everybody really likes the Etcher sketchbooks, and I just don't know if my abilities for watercolor and mixed media, like if my level of work is comparable to the price of an Etcher sketchbook, because they are like $70, which is insane. They did release like a limited time, which I'm sure they do this like every few months, but it's like a limited time release where they're doing Arches watercolor paper. And I love Arches watercolor paper. I like their hot pressed a lot. And I like their cold pressed that I've used like samples, like the palette that I'm using here from A Gallo. They provide a swatch sheet that is cold press Arches watercolor paper, and I loved it. I thought it was great. But I've only ever used samples because I think it's very expensive paper, and unless I'm doing a commission or something, I don't want to spend that kind of money. Um, but I'm really honing in my skills. So I think in the future, maybe I'll open up to more commissions. I really like to do, I gotta get my portrait colors right. I'm still kind of struggling with that a little bit, but I draw these pictures of me and my son, and they turn out so well. So I started painting them, and I'm still trying to learn like what skin tones look best and what colors look best in watercolor, especially with the waters like bleeding and mixing together, or the colors like bleeding and mixing together. Because in acrylics, it's a lot easier. It really is more manageable, where watercolors are kind of doing their own thing. Um, so I'd love to give, you know, people the chance to get commissions of like their family, of them and their kids, of just their kids, of maybe a grandparent or a parent for a Mother's Day gift, Father's Day gift. Um, just like as a momentum, as a token to keep, something for grandma, something for grandpa, just something sweet and handmade. I'd love to have that available to purchase. So I really want to hone in that skill. I also have been really loving doing florals lately, and I love doing like wedding bouquets, and I think that's something very special. So I'd love to do commissions on that. Acrylics I definitely can do. Like they turn out. My skill is just so much better with acrylics than it is with watercolor. But I'm honing in, I'm focusing, I'm getting better, I'm practicing every day. And I just can't wait to see where this journey takes me. I think we'll be in a really good spot in the next few months with my skill set to open up to commissions. That's the goal. I'm not saying it'll happen. I'm just saying, if somebody wants something, I'm not going to tell them no. But here I'm just looking at the piece, back to what we were actually working on. And I'm working on this house a little bit. And you can see that I've added the Micron Pen, and I don't love how that turned out for the windows. I think it just brings the windows forward too much, and it doesn't shade them back, because the windows are not supposed to be a focus, but here it really looks like they're the focus of the piece. And these are the Holbein pencils, and I really like Holbein's colored pencils because they're just so buttery and soft. Um, and everything I use, I find that I really like when it's buttery and soft. Like the A Gallo paints are really buttery and soft. These Holbein pencils are really buttery and soft. I think the Graphitint pencils from Derwent are really buttery and soft. So I really love using those too. But the effect the pencils have is awesome. It's just like this really textury, nice shading, and I like how it turned out. I think adding the pencil was a good move. I think I could have gone without adding the Micron pens. And I love how the pencils work with the grass in the forefront. I love how the sky turned out, how it's a little whimsy with the clouds in the beginning, and then it kind of just fades out and gets a little foggy in the back. I like the trees. I love these little ducky geese things. Overall, I really do like the piece. I do think we could have improved in some areas. And towards the end, I did start rushing because RJ, my son, he started to stir. and I wanted to make sure I got this done and then I could spend more time with him during his wake window because it's just so hard. And I'm sure if you're a parent, you understand this, but when you work full time and they're in daycare and then you get home and then you can do bath time and you can, do your night feeding routine, but then he needs a nap. And it's like, do I put him in a crib and he's away from me? Or do I keep him on the couch next to me so I can just look at his cute little face and feel like I'm actually getting to spend time with him? And then when he wakes up, we like to play and we like to play up until his actual bedtime. So his routine's really good. I do not complain. I think he's in a really good place with his sleep schedule and his nap and his wake windows. But I do try to get time to myself as well as spend as much time with him while he's awake so he feels loved and cared for and feels like his parents aren't just shipping him off to daycare and ignoring him. And we love his daycare. His daycare is great. So, also no complaints there. But if you've made it to this part of the video, let me know in a comment below. I want to grow the community. I also want to see what you guys are working on. So, comment, any pieces that you're doing, comment your favorite sketchbook. If you jump over to my Instagram, if you comment on one of the photos and say you came from YouTube, I will follow you. Or if you comment below and say that you have a YouTube channel, I will follow you and I'll check out your videos. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm just going to let music play from here on out, but I appreciate you guys. I am excited that I have this art journey to share with you. And I think we just have some exciting pieces coming in the future. So thank you so much. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And bye-bye.